When it comes to urban and ICT, there are many things that can be done, but I want to focus on what is the core of our program, the ICT for Gov program, which is the use of ICT for citizen engagement and citizen feedback. Now, so how can we use ICT for citizen engagement? There's a range of ways, but I think there are three main ways that we can think of. The first one is to mobilize citizens to participate. The other one is to reduce the cost of participation, that is the transaction costs that are associated with the act of participating, and also to collect citizen feedback on service delivery. So I'm going to give you examples of these different applications using technology. So to start, for mobilization, here's the city of Ipatinga in Brazil. Actually, this was a project when I was working for the European Commission, 2004, a bit before the hype. So we wanted to experiment with technology to see how we could mobilize people to attend participatory budgeting meetings. Participatory budgeting meetings, briefly explained, is meetings where citizens come together at a certain time, normally at a public school, to decide on the allocation of the public budget. At the time, turnout at these meetings were decreasing, and we wanted to see how telephony could help for the attendance of these meetings. So we chose 4 districts, our treatment group, and we sent 34,000 geo-targeted calls and SMSs inviting citizens to these assemblies. What am I calling geo-targeted calls and SMSs? It's very simple. We basically knew the addresses of the people and their phone numbers. So whenever there was a meeting, a participatory budgeting meeting, we would shoot an automated system of voice or SMS-based messages, normally with the voice of the mayor, which he loved, by the way, which he would invite, saying, hello, is your mayor. Today there's going to be a meeting at school St. Peter. Why don't you show up to decide where public money should be going? So here are a bit of the results. We not only reverted the decrease of turnout trend, but we also increased the level of participation by 30%. But how effective was that related to other means of communication? The city administration at the time was using lots of money with TV, radio, and the city administration was sending a postal letter to every household in the city, inviting them to attend these meetings. So we asked people, which was the means of communication that motivated you the most to attend these meetings? And as you can see, more than half of the people said that it was the phone calls. What is interesting here is that the phone calls and the SMS messages sent cost much less by any of the other means, be it the radio, the postal mail, or the web. So here's just a first idea of how ICT can be used in a very simple framework to mobilize people, not only for participatory budgeting, but for other things. Of course, we can also use ICT to reduce participation costs. So what am I talking again? I'm going to keep on the participatory budgeting example for a while because that's what I've been doing for a long time. So normally when we think of citizen participation or citizen engagement, we think of like this passionate citizen that Tocqueville described, in America. But actually, particularly in urban settings, that's not the case. Well, when you finish your work, you need to take public transport. That is not great. And when you get home, you still have to go to a meeting, and you have to take your kids and so on. These are participation costs extremely high. What's the problem? High participation costs equal low participation. So one of the things that we can do is to think how we can use ICT to make it easier for people to participate. So here's an example of Rio Grande do Sul state, a state that our program is working in Brazil in the framework of an operation. And this is a very good example of how participation costs can be reduced. So it's a state of 11 million inhabitants, so it's bigger than many countries that we might work. And there's a participatory budget of $93.5 million. This is not a budget consultation. Citizens decide where the money is going. And to participate, citizens can do it through the internet, either from a public space, from a public access place, or from their houses at any time they want and from wherever it is. So here's the website. We helped them a little bit already with this last website, and we're still working on things for the future. But let's see the results. The results was that with 11 million inhabitants, 1.2 million voters participated. These are unique users. This was 18% of participation. in 18 hours only. Might not look like a lot, but for those who are working in the domain, you see, lots of times we listen about crowdsourcing, platforms, and all this, but there's one common pattern among most of them is low levels of participation. This is one of the, if not the highest level of ICT-mediated participation ever, not in Brazil, in the world. So why don't we hear about it? My guess is that people from Rio Grande do Sul state don't have time to blog about it in English. So the other thing is feedback on service delivery. Here's a project that we're doing in the Democratic Republic of Congo, in Kinshasa, in which we're using SMS to survey citizens on water access or on access to water services. So here's some of the results that we collect from the citizens. And these results, this data, this citizen-generated data, feeds into the reform process of the water agency. What does that mean in practice? Is that the water agency is using this data to decide where they're building new water points or improving them. Now, what happens when you put this all together? No, and particularly in a challenging environment as the Democratic Republic of Congo. That's what we're trying to do. So we're using SMS-based to do three things, put all these three things that I talked to you about together. First, we use SMS to invite citizens to attend the meetings. So everyone who's living under that antenna, that mobile antenna, we just shoot messages to them, call us the biggest spammers of the Congo. And then they are invited to attend the meetings. Also, we're testing, and we did our first testings to let people vote through SMS on choosing their priorities. So for instance, do you prefer to reform a school or to build a bridge in your area? And also, we do a feedback on service delivery afterwards. So as the public works start to be delivered, we send them updates. So because citizens are very easy to get mobilized, but to follow up, normally it's more difficult. So we try to keep them, let's say, hooked to the participatory process by sending the message when something new happens, like a public works just started, and we try to get feedback from them on that. So what happens? No, so what? What is the so what of participation in these cases? I could tell many good things that are happening in the Congo right now, but here's one of the results that we have when it's compared to our control groups, that is where we're not doing. We see a dramatic increase in tax collection in the Congo. So now citizens are seeing where the money is going, and they see that things cannot be done through the participatory budgeting, sometimes because there's not enough money. So we're seeing more willingness to pay taxes, which is on its turn becoming more services for the poor. Now, I want to talking about these three things, I want to talk about a new idea or concept that in our program we are very excited about, which is cross-selling citizen participation through Open 311 services. So what do I mean by that? So let's go first to cross-selling. So when you go to McDonald's, you might want a Big Mac, but you end up probably eating the Big Mac, the fries, and get a Coke. So that's how it works. That's cross-selling, no? When you call a call center as well, your bank or your TV cable operator, they might eventually give you the service that you need, but above all, they're going to try to sell you a service. No? And that's something that the private sector has been doing successfully for years, but public organizations never do it or almost never do it. So what you're seeing here, actually, it's a picture from a call center last week in the Dominican Republic. You can see the Christmas things over there. Which is a national center of information for information on public services. So citizens can call this city center sometimes to ask, what do I do to get a driver's license? But importantly, and most of the calls that they receive, they call to know, am I eligible to your cash transfer program or not? And if I am, what should I do? So what I'm saying is that we have an extremely hard to reach public going here, and they receive 5 million calls a year. But what happens when it's business as usual? When they receive a phone call, they just give their answer and they hang up. That's what I call a big missed opportunity. Citizens are coming to the state, are talking to you, and all that you do is to provide them what they asked and you hang up. If you do that in a private bank, you're fired the other day. But here, that's what's happening. So what do you want to do? We want to leverage this opportunity using this existing infrastructure in the Dominican Republic to say what we call cross-sell participation. So here, for instance, is a website that from now on, very soon, we're still testing, call center operators will have in front of them. So whenever the citizen calls for anything, any type of service, at the end, the person says, is there something, for instance, in your neighborhood that you would like to improve? Or how are the water services that you are receiving? So here, what we're doing is that we're starting to engage in a conversation with the citizen that before he didn't do. So here, for instance, citizens can do say, make a kind of like a request for their areas. Of course, we're very careful not to raise expectations of citizens. A state has limited resources, and we try to follow up with them and try to give them reasons and let them know what is happening. And that is done through SMS. We collect their phones, and we send it to them. Of course, you can also send to people the messages. In Dominican Republic, they have participatory budgeting mandatory in the Constitution. So if the citizen's problem has not been addressed by the state in a first moment, when participatory budgeting comes, we can send a message and say, that problem that you requested was not solved, but you can come to the participatory budgeting meeting and treat them. So this is treating citizens as citizens and not as customers, because customers are spoiled. Citizens, they need to deal with limited resources. So here, just to say, it is a kind of, just to show it, we're testing the usability of our platform with a call center operator right now, and we intend to launch it very soon. Now, some of the emerging lessons, Judy asked us to come some with a few lessons. First one is give voice only when you can respond to it. If you can't, don't start. Don't bother. So that's why it's always good to try to engage into a process of engaging reforms. So in Kinshasa, the water agency is changing their water fountains and improving. That's the good moment to come. You know? When you're entered like this field of ICT for development and so on, you're going to listen all the time, it's not about the technology, it's not about the technology, and it's not about the technology. Well, it's mostly about the results and processes. But in developing countries, 85% of ICT projects fail. So if it's not about the technology, it's about governments using technology. So technology matters. So if you can, keep it simple, no? And also take advantage of existing infrastructure. If you have a city, and there are many in developing countries, with something that resembles a call center, and someone asks you to build a new crowdsourcing platform, don't do it. That's like opening a McDonald's for burgers and another McDonald's just for fries. So that's not a good idea. Also, I mean, if you want to do meaningful citizen engagement, you cannot do it just from DC, and one mission will not solve it. You need more people to help you, and hopefully the right people. Thank you.